to be intended to incite unlawful behavior will be deemed to be out of order. Zoom participants are requested to mute their microphones until they are called upon to speak. The City of Greensboro is committed to promoting an environment that is free of discrimination, bias, and bullying. Thus, harassment, words, jokes, actions, or comments based on an individual's sex, sexual orientation, race, ethnic background, age, religion, physical condition, or other legally protected characteristic will not be tolerated. In order to be considered, written comments must be submitted online through the city's website, www.greensboro-nc.gov. We have a consent agenda for items G1 and G2, which are a grouping of agenda items that are voted on with one single vote to expedite what are believed to be routine and non-controversial items. Any council member may withdraw an item from the consent agenda due to a conflict of interest or for the purpose of voting no. Items removed from the consent agenda for discussion will be placed on the February City Council business agenda. This meeting does include closed captioning. Depending on the length of tonight's meeting, we will take a short recess around 7:30.
Remember, because if they're going to take 2 or 3 hours.
This is the time for ceremonial and presentation items. Item number 1 is a resolution honoring the memory of the late Eddie C. Bridges. Mrs. Abuzawader?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll read the resolution, and then after we vote, if the family would like to come up and say a few words, and I'll present you with the resolution. Resolution to support and encourage the North Carolina Department of Transportation to name a section of roadway in the memory of Eddie C. Bridges. Whereas Eddie C. Bridges was born in Burke County, attended public schools, and graduated from Morganton High School. Whereas Eddie C. Bridges graduated from Elon College, which is now Elon University, where he was the first person in Elon history to run the 100-yard dash under 10 seconds and established 3 new school records at the same meet. Whereas Eddie C. Bridges owned Carolina Athletic Supply, State Street, Greensboro. Whereas Eddie C. Bridges was appointed to the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission in 1977, where he served 2 6-year terms. Whereas Eddie C. Bridges helped develop the North Carolina Lifetime Hunting and Fishing Licenses, and the North Carolina Wildlife Endowment Fund, also named the Eddie Bridges Fund by the North Carolina General Assembly, which today is in excess of $166 million. Whereas Eddie C. Bridges proposed the North Carolina Waterfowl Stamp and the North Carolina Tax Checkoff Program. Whereas Eddie C. Bridges created the North Carolina Wildlife Habitat Foundation, which today has an excess of $6 million, and he served as the executive director until 2020. Whereas Eddie C. Bridges has received more than 40 wildlife conservation awards and is the only recipient in the United States awarded 4 national conservation awards. Whereas the family of Eddie Bridges have requested the North Carolina Department of Transportation, NCDOT, to name a section of roadway in his memory. Whereas the City Council of the City of Greensboro, North Carolina, support and encourage the NCDOT to consider this request based on the many contributions of Eddie Bridges to the City of Greensboro and to the state of North Carolina. And now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Greensboro that the City Council wishes to support and encourage the North Carolina Department of Transportation to consider naming a section of roadway in the memory of the late Eddie C. Bridges for his many accomplishments and contributions to our community and beyond. Adopted this the 4th day of January, 2022. Madam Mayor, I'd like to make the motion.
Second. And seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Council, please vote. Mrs. Hoffman, Mr. Holston,
Yes.
Dr. Wells, Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
I am a yes. Mrs. Busewader?
Yes.
Mr. Outling?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hightower? That passes 9-0.
May I remove my mask? My name is Sam Bridges and I preside at Pleasant Garden. And I've got a business that has operated here in Greensboro for 35 years, so to speak. And I'm gonna try to unpack this quickly. I brought here a couple of pamphlets I'd like to hand to y'all if I could. I don't know how to get them passed out to you. Yes, ma'am. On the front of those brochures there is a picture, and it's on the board now, of a deer stand that my father went to, not necessarily to make harvest of deer, but to allow nature to take its course with his innovative mind, and ideas came to him there. I went to the governor's office and I asked them to please fly the flag at the state capitol building on June the 23rd, which was the day of his service. And there is a service paper in there. And there's also a copy of that same picture on the board of that deer stand, but we changed it up. I took my younger son, Stone, with me to help me to hang that flag up on that deer stand. So I wanted y'all to have a picture of that where we had changed it a little bit. I can't tell you how honored I am to be a citizen here in Greensboro. And I'm so grateful to have a mayor like Nancy Bone. I had a scripture here and it says, without counsel purposes are disappointed, but in multitude of counselors, they are established. I went to counsel to the director of the Department of Transportation, Mike Fox. I went to the new engineer for the Department of Transportation, Wright Archer. And a long time ago, I went to Nancy Bone about something and it all worked out favorably. Now, Mike, I didn't talk with him directly. It was indirectly through Wright. But one time I went to Nancy and I had an issue about a neighbor of mine. She was 90-some years old and she lived in a nursing home over here off of Ward Street. And the director of it got involved and took control of her assets and seized her property and sold it to somebody different in the community. And y'all were wanting to know what this had to do with Eddie Bridges, but it's the point that I was amazed that I got somebody to listen to what my problem was. And later on, because of her inspiration and not allowing that to happen to citizens that preside here in Greensboro, Miss Bird got her property back. Now, it was after she passed, but she did get it back and it did go to the church that she requested it to go to. So thank you very much for your participation and your direction in that. I'm grateful for that. And I feel that Mike Fox and Wright Archer had a lot to do in helping me to achieve this objective. I'm very grateful for the votes our family has started a new foundation or incorporation, which will be a nonprofit in Greensboro. And the purpose of it is for facilitating, preparing, and supervising the placements and installments of public memorials in the state of North Carolina with related land acquisitions and promoting causes for the protection of the environment, including without limitation, conservation and the protection of wildlife habitats. Well, when I got started on this mission, I want to let you know that I was actually trying to fulfill something that my father had a dream about. And it wasn't about naming a road over him. It was naming one after the late Judge Osteen. That's what his whole purpose was to do something for somebody else. And I went to write about it and described and told him everything I was going to do and what I wanted to do, but I never mentioned Bill Osteen. I never mentioned my dad. And I went back on Monday with divine order and having a little bit of time. I had to get a Sabbath day behind me for it to hit me. But when I went back, I said, right, I don't know if we're going to do this for Judge Osteen. I think my dad's done a whole lot for the community. Why wouldn't he be deserving of it? And Wright looked at me, and I grew up with Wright. And he looked at me and he said, well, Sam, he said, that's who I thought you was doing it for the whole time. I didn't think you was doing it. I didn't know anything about Judge Osteen. So that will maybe come to y'all's presence next, or maybe y'all know something about that. And through our organization, we've raised some money to be able to help to pay for the funding of these. And the only thing left that I have to say before I want to let Michelle read this little paper she had. Where's your paper? Have you got it?
I do.
The only thing I wanted to say is that when I went to write, I thought I was asking him, that's what I'm talking about, that scripture and divine order. I went to write and I wanted to be on 840, the new 840. And when they complete them, they have to have about a year after the completion, and then you can have a portion of the road. You can request that to be named after somebody that may possibly be deserving. Well, council advised me that they wanted to go. He didn't want to. Mike Fox didn't necessarily agree with the 840. Why? I don't know, but it's okay because I respect council and I respect what he has other directions or other ideas, and I'm going to yield to that. And so I went back to him and asked if I couldn't have something a little closer. He wanted to do it on Battleground because my daddy did that Frank Sharp Education Center that's been very successful in the city of Greensboro in the Parks and Recreation. But he wanted to do it there on Battleground to recognize him somewhat. Well, I thought about that a little bit, and every third day of the week and possibly more, my dad went to that deer stand right down Lawndale and went right underneath that 840 new bypass. So I was asking Wright if there couldn't be some consideration about doing it on Lawndale right there at that 840. And I don't know if later on, maybe I could speak with Christian Wilson. Now, I don't know if Christian's here. Okay, Christian, I've never met Christian in my life. But boy, he's a nice guy and a wonderful part of my program here because he wrote some letters for me. I've never met you. Thank you very much for your participation. And I'd like to speak with you sometime if there's an opportunity to talk about that, because there's not been a decision from my understanding about where the road would be. Is that correct? There hadn't been a designated road.
Not yet. That'll come from the state, correct, Mary Kay?
Yes.
Mhm.
So they told me when I talked with Wright that being that it would be on Lawndale, that it would be more up to the city manager and maybe some of y'all's decision about that. Now, I don't know, but that's why I'm asking sometime at a later date that would be more suitable if I couldn't have some time with you to talk about that.
I'll follow up with you. Just so you know, I knew your dad very well. I worked with him on that Frank Sharp facility.
Well, I yield my time. And I'm very grateful, and I thank you for your presence, and I'm overwhelmed with your vote.
I wasn't planning to speak. But I carry this around with me. And it's quotes and comments from my father. It says, Eddie stated, divine order has taken care of a lot of stuff for me. The Lord has blessed me in a multitude of ways. Lots of great things have happened to me. I feel really honored and grateful to be 87 years old and still be getting those blessings. It's pretty remarkable. So thank you.
Thank you both, and we certainly appreciate you sharing your father with us, and his legacy will truly be a lasting one in the city of Greensboro. And we will do our best to get that portion named as closely as you want it to. I think the last thing that needed to be done was this resolution that Mary Kay brought forth. So be in contact with the state of North Carolina. Thank you so much.
Apologize for my attire. I was in the middle of storm damage tree work when I got the call from Miss Rosa that it was time to come on.
Thank you all for your time.
Item number E2 is a resolution honoring the memory of the late Veda Jeanette Spellman Stroud. Mrs. Hightower?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And it's always awesome to honor people near and dear to us. So certainly Bridget's family, we wish you the very best. This resolution recognizes one of our oldest citizens who left us in November. She was 105 years of age. And so as I read this, but also that her daughter who is here, Miss Crystal McCombs, wanted you all to have one of her funeral service programs. And Ms. McCombs, after I read this, you can come up and give some words of acknowledgement. Resolution honoring the memory of the late Veda Jeanette Spellman Stroud. Whereas on November 7, 2021, the community lost one of its oldest outstanding community leaders with the passing of the late Veda Jeanette Spellman Stroud. Whereas Ms. Stroud was born in Pocomoke, Maryland on April 14, 1916, and achieved the age of 105 years. Whereas Ms. Stroud graduated from Lockerman High School, Denton, Maryland in 1936, attended Hampton Institute, now Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia in 1936, and transferred to the Agricultural and Technical College of North Carolina, now North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, NCA&T, in Greensboro, North Carolina, where she graduated in 1939. Whereas Ms. Stroud's involvement at NCA&T included membership in the college choir. She sang for several years. After graduation, served as the piano accompaniment for physical education dance activities, and used her self-taught cosmetology skills as a hairdresser for fellow female students and friends. Whereas Ms. Stroud in April 1939 was inducted into the Alpha Phi chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, AKA, held various positions within the sorority, and became one of only a few diamond sorors worldwide, having served AKA for 75 years. Whereas Ms. Stroud met her husband and married in November 1942 in Baltimore, Maryland. Whereas she received a master's degree in business education from Columbia University in New York in 1947. Whereas Ms. Stroud served as secretary to the dean of NCA&T from 1939 through 1941, served as a tenured professor of business education in the NCA&T Department of Business in 1941, retired in 1982 with 42 years of service, and was named Grand Marshal for the 2015 North Carolina A&T Homecoming Parade. Whereas Ms. Stroud was a dedicated and active member of St. Matthew's United Methodist Church since 1936, was elected secretary to the administrative board, appointed to the St. Matthew's Committee on Communication for the membership's new newsletter, served on the pastor's parish committee as well as the scholarship committee, was elected Woman of the Year in 2004 for her dedicated service to St. Matthew's, sang in the chancel choir, and was a piano accompaniment for various music performances. Whereas Ms. Stroud had excellent sewing skills, enjoyed cooking sweet desserts, monthly bridge and lunch with the ladies senior group, and playing piano at home. And now therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Greensboro that the City Council wishes to express its sense of loss and offer its condolences, sincere appreciation and gratitude for the many years of public service, dedicated public service by Vita Jeanette Spellman Stroud. The legacy she leaves will be remembered by the people of Greensboro, and that a copy of the resolution shall be delivered to the family of the late Vita Jeanette Spellman Stroud as a symbol of the gratitude of the citizens of the city of Greensboro and the state of North Carolina for her many contributions to this community and beyond. I would like to move the item.
Moved by Mrs. Hightower, seconded by Ms. Abuzawader
I third.
and Mrs. Johnson. Council, please vote. Mrs. Hoffman? Mr. Holston?
Yes.
Dr. Wells? Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
I am a yes. Mrs. Abuzawader?
Yes.
Mr. Outling?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hightower?
Yes,
And that passes 9-0.
and Ms. McCombs, if you will come forth, I'll present you the resolution. But I did not know Ms. Stroud, but I wish I had known her to find out what her secret was to long life, 105 years. I mean, certainly she did some great things, apparently, that God blessed her with a long life, and certainly she served our Greensboro community, and I'm proud that she lived among us. So,
I
thank you.
want to thank the council for the proclamation. I would say this, mother came here as a student, and after she met the man who would become her husband, who was a fellow student, she never wanted to go back to Maryland again. She loved Greensboro. And she stayed here. Well, she'd go back to visit family, but she stayed for the rest of her life. I taught math at Guilford Technical Community College, and one of the math problems I always used was my mother's age to figure out how old she was. You can't imagine how old some of them made her. But one point that I would mention was she was born 4 years after the sinking of the Titanic on the same date, April 14th. Okay. Roosevelt was the first president she voted for, and Biden was the last. And Woodrow Wilson was president when she was born. And in her lifetime, she had a chance to experience 19 presidents. I didn't know this, my daughter found this out. But I think when you live a life that long, you get to see a lot of things and a lot of people. Am I right? So
Right.
thank you so much. And I'm still here. I don't know if I'm gonna make 105, but I'm gonna try. Thank you very much.
I was very fortunate to have known your mom and this fantastic human being. I think one of her great strengths was tenacity and never giving up. I mean, she was for lack maybe of a better word, a drum major in her profession, and she just never gave up. Her vision was clear, and she followed that, and she succeeded. And just God rest her soul, and thank your mom, and thank her for all of the many qualities and contributions she made to our community.
Thank you. Item number E3 is a resolution to recognize Dudley High School football team. Mrs. Hightower?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And do have the coach, a couple coaches and some players here tonight. And did did the principal make it? Okay, so if you all want to, well, you can come around right here. I'll give you the rest. While the resolution is not a long resolution, paper can't really describe what Dudley High School has really done. Their football team has set a high standard. Their football team has certainly set a high standard in this city. We are proud of them, how they represented us, you know, for their high score, but their record, and not only are they great athletes, but they're great students too. Let's don't forget that. They are excellent students. Resolution to recognize the 2021 Dudley High School Panthers football team on their 5th North Carolina High School Athletic Association NCHSAA Championship. Whereas Dudley High School, Dudley, secured its 11th Mid-State 3A regular season conference title. Whereas Dudley claimed the North Carolina High School Athletic Association, NCHSAA, Class 3A State Championship on December 10th, 2021 at the University of North Carolina's Keenan Stadium in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Whereas with the 69-40 win over J.H. Rose High School, Greenville, North Carolina, Dudley set a NCHSAA record for points scored in a neutral site state championship game. Whereas Dudley closed out the 2021 football season with an impressive 15-1 overall record. And now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Greensboro that the City Council wishes to recognize the 2021 Dudley High School Panthers football team on their 5th North Carolina High School Athletic Association Championship. Adopted this the 4th day of January.
Second the resolution.
Third.
Move
So that is moved by Mrs. Hightower and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Council, please vote. Mrs. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Holston?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
I am a yes. Mrs. Abuzawader?
Yes.
Mr. Outling?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hightower?
Yes.
And that passes 9-0.
So.
I just wanted to say to the team, for the last 2 months, my daughter and I, we're both alums of Dudley, Lisa Johnson Tompkins and myself, have gone on Facebook to cheer you on. We knew you could do it, and we gave you encouragement and hope, but you came through, and we're so proud of you. Thank you so much.
Mrs. Abuzawader?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My family are thrilled about this championship win. My son played center for Dudley in the 90s. And our whole family is just ecstatic about this. We didn't quite make it that far when he played, but he played center and then left tackle. So, you know, proud Panther pride. I mean, really. So congratulations.
Yeah, I have to say 5 years is a pretty amazing record. We're sure that you're going to continue that streak. And we want to thank you for what you've done for the city of Greensboro by bringing attention not only to Dudley and the great program, but our city. And I want to, if you could recognize the players that are here. I know that you couldn't bring the whole team here, but please let the team know how much we appreciate them and what a great job. Well done.
So if you all want to have a few words, please have a few and introduce who you are, coach. Celebrate yourself as well as you brought a couple players and Principal Timmons McLaughlin.
Thank you. We'd like to also thank the entire council for the support. It takes a village to raise a student, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a whole community in order to come together and be able to get a state championship. I'm the proud principal at James Benson Dudley High School. I'm Lissay Timmons McLaughlin, and I have been humbled by the opportunity to work with these individuals. As previously mentioned, they are dynamic athletes, but they're good students and they're great people. So walking down the hall, we do have Panther pride, but they have pride in themselves. And we know that this is just the beginning of what they're going to be able to finish in this life. And I can't say enough about this dynamic coach that we have, who is not just a great coach, but he's a great mentor. He's a great teacher, and he makes sure that the boys do what's right at the school, on the field, and off the field. So I'm going to introduce Coach Stephen Davis, and then you'll be able to hear from some of our dynamic players. And thank you again, all of you. Appreciate you.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to say just thank you to the City Council and the City of Greensboro for recognizing the accomplishment we just had at the state championship game. I must say that I know this is the fifth one we've had in the North Carolina High School Athletic Association, but I must say it's the seventh overall for Dudley. So I want to recognize, before we got into the Athletic Association, everybody who was a part of the 7 state championships. And I just want to say it's just been a great honor to coach the guys I had this year. They're such a close-knit group, and it's almost impossible to get kids to be that close these days and times, but we did have a close-knit group, and these guys, brought home the championship. And I'm just want to say I'm so very proud of these 3 guys and the rest of my team and my coaching staff. Thank you. Okay, well, I'll say their name, or they can come up here and say their names. Tell me your position.
I'm Jameer Slade, quarterback number 1. I just want to say thank you for having me. It was a long season, great ride, being my last year. I'm going to miss these guys.
Good evening, everyone. My name is RJ Baker, play running back and receiver, and I'd just like to thank you on the recognition from us.
My name is Trayvon Humphrey. I play offensive line. This season was a great one. I met some really good guys, and went out with a bang. Thank you.
And my name is Betty Jenkins. I am the proud school board member for Dudley High School. And I can say Panther pride.
Young man, I don't know much about football, but I'm looking for y'all on some fields somewhere soon in the near future. Hopefully not the Panthers. But maybe they could use you.
Item number E4 is a resolution to recognize National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Mrs. Abuzawader?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas by the late 1880s, all major cities had police forces to protect public order, which meant different things to different people. From that time to the present policing became progressively more standardized, continuing its path of developing and maintaining professionalism. Whereas first observed in 2015, National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, also known as LEAD, will be observed on Sunday, January 9th, 2022. And observance of the day are requested to spend it thanking police officers wearing blue and turning on blue lights in their neighborhood and homes. Whereas there are over 900,000 law enforcement officers in the United States being honored on National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. And this shows that the community recognizes the difficulty of their job and supports them as they provide a public service. Whereas the day is dedicated to all members of law enforcement, focusing on police and similar state and local agencies. Whereas the concepts of having a police force changed throughout history from being part-time, privately funded, or volunteer, but as night watches became less effective, the first full-time publicly funded police force in the country was formed in Boston in 1838. And now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Greensboro that the Greensboro City Council support observance of this day, January 9th, 2022, and encourages residents to thank local police officers for their service and to continue to respect their profession. Adopted this the 4th day of January, 2022. Move the item.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Abuzawader, seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote. Mrs. Hoffman? Mr. Holston?
Yes.
Dr. Wells?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I am a yes. Mrs. Abuzawader?
Yes.
Mr. Outling?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hightower?
Yes.
And that passes 9-0. And we'll make sure that that gets passed along to the appropriate personnel. Item number 5 is a recognition of the Morningside Award winners. And this is another Dudley recognition. And I believe that Dr. Love Jones is on Zoom.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I am going to take the opportunity to share screen so that we can see images of the recipients. One moment, please. Good evening. The Morningside Academic Award was approved by the City Council in 2021, specifically October, in commemoration of the 5 lives lost during the Greensboro Massacre of 1979. The award is designed for candidates who are graduating seniors of James B. Dudley High School and demonstrate a commitment to further the efforts of equity and social justice in one or more of the following ways. That would include future academic goals by way of any chosen post-secondary education path that addresses issues of discrimination and disparity or inequity. It also includes future employment goals, and that includes any chosen employment beyond high school graduation that will contribute to the lives of others in ways that work towards the elimination of inequities or disparities. Finally, the third area in which a student can contribute is by way of entrepreneurial goals. And that includes the development of any nonprofit or for-profit business developed after graduating from high school that contributes to the betterment of the lives of marginalized populations. In 2021, we were very excited to present to these 3 students the Morningside Academic Award, the first being Kadira Sebrin, who has entered North Carolina A&T as of the fall of 2021 as a criminal justice major, with professional aspirations of becoming a defense attorney, specifically for underrepresented Black and Brown communities subject to disparity. Second, we have Faith Smalls, who as of fall 2021 entered Wake Forest University as a double major in political science and philosophy, with professional aspirations of either serving as an attorney to underrepresented populations for criminal justice reform or developing a role in the field of education with a doctor of education, hoping to address issues of disparity for minority populations in the public school system. And then finally, we have Layla Cherry, who as of fall 2021 entered North Carolina A&T Technical State University as a sociology major with a professional goal of serving as a social worker or counselor, specifically serving LGBTQ populations, as well as homeless populations and those who are unemployed, and a pool of job seekers. So we are very, very grateful to these students for doing the due diligence of applying and also writing really solid applications or essays to articulate their goals in the future in serving the field of human rights. And of course, we're very thankful to the members of council who have been very supportive of this endeavor. And here you see that the picture here is of the recipients with some.
I think we've lost the audio.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Not really.
How about now?
Yep, we got you.
Perfect. And so again, this is just another image of the recipients of the award this summer at the Human Rights Gala. And again, just very grateful to have students who are committed to furthering the efforts for human rights, not only in our community, but across the state and the country. I would also like to highlight that we are at the place where we have our application live again at Dudley High School. Thank you so much to the members of Dudley High School staff who have been working with us to roll out the application even earlier so that we can drum up even more participation. And our staff will be connecting with students at Dudley by way of classrooms with teachers who have invited us to talk more about civic engagement and human rights in anticipation of scholarship application submissions. So thank you again.
Thank you. And these students will be recognized a little bit further at the upcoming Martin Luther King breakfast, and we look forward to that. This will be the first time that they will be included as part of the program.
Right.
That is correct.
And Madam Mayor, the principal is still here, so I would like to ask Principal Ms. McLaughlin, come just have a few words, but I look forward to working closely with Principal Ms. McLaughlin, I think, and Betty Jenkins, who's still here, our school board representative as well, to ensure that we do fulfill the 5 students. Because we know we have a lot of students with potential for this. And so, we are going to ensure that we complete and do that, because there's a lot of potential at Dudley. Every time, I just love it. My daughter graduated Dudley, so, every chance I get.
And we appreciate it. We appreciate all the support that we get from you all, the resources that's provided and the love that's given and shown to us. It just helps me appreciate the fact that our students are going to be okay. And our students are going to do well. We exceed on the football field, as I mentioned before, and we exceed inside the classroom. And the 3 individuals that have been mentioned here, I've already checked back on. They're doing well at North Carolina A&T and exceptionally well at Wake Forest University. And because of the scholarships that have been provided, then we will make sure that we come back. We allow them to come back, and the committee that's going to be able to come to our classes to help encourage other students. I do think that sometimes we have to give our students a little bit more confidence in their writing of the essays, a little bit more confidence in being able to say, I can compete with other students, not just in Greensboro, North Carolina, but in the state. At Dudley, we are providing a foundation so that our students will be able to go and do well wherever and whatever it is that they decide to do. And I appreciate our school board member who always comes to support also, from the events that we have there at the school to the events that we have here in the community. And again, I truly believe that it takes a village to raise a child, and look at the resources that we possibly can give to them. And to whom much is given, much is expected, and much has been given to us. We appreciate all that you do for us, and we just say thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a number of speakers signed up at our public comment period. We have a grouping of speakers who want to talk about the North Eugene streetscape and closure. I'm not sure if there is an order in which you'd like to speak, and I believe that you are on Zoom. We have John Hill, Marianne Contagenis, Jimmy Contagenis, and Elizabeth Contagenis. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes, but you can speak in whatever order you would like. And I believe that we have Hannah Cockburn on Zoom also from GDOT to help address some of these concerns.
Hi, this is John Hill. If I may, I'm going to allow the Contagineous family to speak first, and then I'll follow them if that's acceptable.
Yes.
I don't see anybody. All right, okay.
Can
All
you
right, hi,
turn your camera on?
Rachel.
Great.
Can you see Jimmy?
Hello? Hello,
So I
you
can see Jimmy.
Okay,
Perfect.
okay. I can't see anyone else, but that's okay. Anyway, I'll get started here. You know, as you guys know, the Acropolis has been around a long time. It celebrated its 54th anniversary 2 months ago, and we're hoping that we'll make it to 55. You know, I never would have thought we'd have found ourselves 4 years later back having the same thing done outside, you know, which almost closed me up at the time. So we're trying to be precautious this time and try to do it right so we can stay in business here. On December 20th, we had a meeting here at the Acropolis with the construction workers, the city of Greensboro, and the 3 business owners that they're concerned about this outside project that's going on here. And prior to that day, we all knew that it's going to take 3 months, but we were going to have 1 lane open. And then we find out on that day, December 20th, that we no longer would have 1 lane open unless we had go to 6 months and stuff like that. So we had a lot of questions and and stuff like that, and we didn't get any answers then, and we still haven't. And one of the last questions was asked, like, what do you guys want to do? Go 3 months with no lane or 6 months with 1 lane? And we never made that decision yet, or any other decisions. And we, like I said, we heard nothing about, all the questions were unanswered and stuff like that. So we would like to get some questions answered, because the other items I'm about to bring up here in a minute, I need answers to, like, in the next 24 hours, because it deals with deliveries and stuff like that. So I can go ahead and start with deliveries to begin with. I got DoorDash and I got Grubhub, and I do lunch and dinner with them, and they've got to be able to come in here or have a point where they can go to and pick up the food that's being made for them. We had a customer ask for curbside tonight. I don't know if that would could get done, but we need to get that done as well, and also, like, I have food deliveries, of course, wine deliveries, and even myself, when I go to grocery stores, or go to Restaurant Depot or some, place and get stuff for the food supplies for the restaurants, I got to be able to come in and unload, because I can't park at the deck and, carry the stuff down, and all that kind of stuff. And then my other concerns also are, is that, for handicap customers, how would they get in and how would they have access to the restaurant and the other two businesses? And also, how about an ambulance? What about if we needed an ambulance, a EMS? I mean, how would that work? You know what I mean? We're totally clueless on, all these things here. I had some delivery people ask me today, I'm saying, like, how do we do? I said, well, just get in here or get as close as you can, best you can. But I got to be able to tell them something better than that. You know what I mean? And then I'm also concerned about the trash
Mr.
collection.
Contigenis,
And,
your time is expired, but we
Yes.
did receive an email late this afternoon, which I think outlined some of the questions you just asked and maybe a few others, which will get responded to for you. If we can finish the speakers, then we can have Hannah address what she's able to at this point.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Here's your camera. Go ahead. Okay, this is Elizabeth Contigenis, okay? We know that the city council doesn't want to go ahead and hurt small businesses, but we're having a hard time understanding. And this is the second time in 4 years that we've had to go through this. And we wanted you to tell us how this is going to benefit how we're going to benefit from it, how this block is going to benefit from it. Because some of the work, could have been done when you closed it 4 years ago. Okay, and then the other issue that we're concerned about is closing both the 300 and the 400 block of Eugene. Because technically, right there where the Carroll Apartments end is where the barricade's going to be and where the men are going to work between that point and Smith Street. Okay, and basically, if you open that part in front of the hotel, the apartments, and where the grasshoppers are, and leave that parking for these businesses, for the salon, us, and for Select Cycle, at least, because people don't want to walk, okay? They won't have anywhere to park. And the people in the apartments in the hotel have the parking garage. The grasshoppers, if it would have ever hurt them, they have parking lots in back of them. So we want to know why you think it's important to close both blocks when you're not even going to work on the 300 block and you're going to work on half of the 400 block. Okay. Okay, that's no deal. So can you answer any of those?
So we want to get through your comments first,
Yeah,
and then.
Okay. Okay, but the main thing here that we're upset about is the fact that you claim to support small business. And once again, we don't feel like we're really being supported because there really isn't a reason for us have to go through so much grief, so much worry, loss of business for something.
30 seconds.
I understand, thank you. But I hope you guys can understand where we're coming from, because we feel there's nowhere else in Greensboro that this has happened to any businesses twice. So we want to know why it has to take 2 times to get 2 little blocks right when it could have been done the first time. And I don't think that's being unreasonable. We don't. That's it. Is that it? Yep, that's it. Hello, is that it?
Well, is Dr. Contigenis there? Does she have any comments she'd like to make?
We each have 3 minutes. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Are y'all ready?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to try to summarize a lot of things, okay? First of all, foremost, at our last meeting on the 20th, we were, again, as my brother said, asked, do y'all want to do 3 months with no access or 6 months with limited access of 1 lane? Prior to that, we have been promised by the city staff
that we would have 3 months and 1 lane of traffic. The city never came back to us to say, what is your decision? Because personally, we'd rather have 6 months and 1 lane of traffic open, okay? We also, the concern Liz brought up about small businesses, it does not look at all like the city council's concern with small businesses. I mean, she brought up the question, has any other business in Greensboro been affected like this? Have y'all had to close their front door? And if you did, how did you assist them? Okay, we asked many questions about access, as my brother did. Access for our customers. For goodness sakes, how are they going to come to the front door if right now you have it blocked off at Smith Street, which is the end of the 400 block, but you have gone up to the 300 block at Belmead and you have blocked it off? How are they going to come? How are handicapped people going to get in here? I'm a physician. I said, Jimmy, how is an ambulance or an EMS going to get in there if you have problems, or John has it at Select Cycles, or Olivia has it at her salon? These are all issues that have not been addressed, okay? And with our business income being affected, my goodness, Jimmy has already had his, he didn't tell you today, his lunchtime deliveries were cut in half, the DoorDash, Grubhub, et cetera, because they couldn't get in here. His flow traffic has been cut already. This evening, the phone is hardly ringing, hardly customers are coming in, and that's most unusual for Tuesday night. So these are all significant things that he faced with my mother at the time 4 years ago, and nearly lost the restaurant. Had we not owned the business, it would have been awful for them, okay? And then think about buses. Buses come out in front of the restaurant all the time. What about these city routes for people that come here or have to work in the area and take their buses? How about trash collection? How about when electrical changeover is going to happen? We cannot even afford an hour for there to be lack of electricity to this business here. We have refrigerators and freezers that contain thousands of dollars of food. We cannot afford to lose that, okay? As my sister Liz brought up, you have the 300 and the 400 block. If you close just the 400 block, which is basically from Roy's development onto Smith Street, they could do that and leave the other part open, so that could be available for people to come, okay? And then you take the 300 block, so then our block would be totally open. No one has addressed that to see, why can't you do that? Plenty of room for all their equipment to do it. And then messaging. I'm going to show y'all pictures of the messaging that's up there. I hope you can see this. This here on one end, all it says is
you're not in front of the camera. Can you move it over?
Okay, can you see it?
No,
on one end,
down a little bit.
Okay, at one end it says street closed.
We
on
can't
the
see
other
it.
end, it says street closed, businesses open, and it's got a very small logo of our businesses. We were promised digital signage because your staff at the city said that metal signs aren't good enough. We need you to do an ad campaign for us. We need you to get out there and get the message out for us that we're open and we're struggling.
Thank you.
And
We
need
will.
business.
We'll get a comment in a minute. Mr. Hill, do you want to close us out?
Yes, I'm ready.
Thank you.
Are we set?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm cutting my video on real quick.
Yes, we got you.
Madam Mayor and council members, we came before you in August before you approved this bid and told you of our concerns. At that time, we had been under the assumption, mainly from Eric Tart, for over a year, that we would only have a closure, a partial closure, never both lanes at any time, and it would not last no longer than 3 months. We had our meeting on December 20th, and all of a sudden the message has changed that the contractor has suggested closing the entire block. And we said, why didn't you consult with everybody before you made this project? And why did you ask for our permission to enter our property, which I gladly gave with no fee to the city, that they can come in my premises and do the job they need to do, assuming that I wouldn't have total closure. But now that's flipped. When we asked the questions on the 20th, we asked numerous questions, anything from marketing, and we were to hear some answers before we made a decision whether this would be a 3 month with total closure or 6 months with some lanes open. And we never received any responses. And all of a sudden on the 30th, last Thursday, there's a press release that North Eugene Street is going to be closed for 30 days. And the only question I had of asked me during the entire time between the 20th and the 30th was, may I get a copy of your logo by Chris Spencer? We've repeatedly asked, how do we get services? I am a franchise dealer. I can't do business at another address. I can't go a block away. DMV will not allow it. My franchisee are set up for my address. My deliveries are set up for my address. And when I'm denied access to that address, then I am breaking every DMV regulation. I cannot operate a motor vehicle on a closed road or a sidewalk. We've asked permission, can we shuttle back and forth to the parking deck, with such as a golf cart on the portion that is finished, and we were told North Carolina statutes prevent such. So you've really not given any consideration and have only allowed the contractor to run at free will again, which is what happened before that we expressed our concerns to you in August, that there's no direction, no restriction. The contractor runs the show, which they're a great third party and they're neutral in this. They're just doing work and getting paid, and they do a great job. I think you chose a great contractor, Yates Construction. But the way this went about, and they just got total control, and we were given a chance to ask questions to which we never received any answer. And then all of a sudden a press release appears that the road is totally closed for 30 days. You lose trust and you wonder why, and you ask questions. In the meantime, I've asked Melinda King, I've asked numerous questions to numerous people, and every time I'm pointed to another direction, I call, nobody answers their phone. Nobody is able to answer things like, where will my customers bring their motorcycle to unload it so that they can get it serviced? How can we access the store to load new merchandise to make a delivery for a new product that we sold that we have to sell in our store? We can't sell it 2 blocks away. Is that my time limit?
Yes.
Okay, I'm done.
So we did get an email this afternoon, which I think outlined or reiterated most of the questions that you've asked. Hannah, are you on Zoom?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
If you could address some of these questions, because I have to say, I share their concerns. You know, they were closed for a very long time a few years ago. You know, the motorcycle shop and the restaurant really were in a mess of a situation. And I think we should be moving kind of heaven and earth to make it the least bit inconvenient for them that we can and still carry the project on. And I want to know that we have been communicating adequately and also taking, you know, what's happening to them into consideration.
Absolutely. And we share those same concerns, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to give a high-level overview of the conversations and the commit to providing a written summary of the discussions that we have had, because many of these questions were addressed in the meeting on December 20th and discussed at some length. And I'm sorry folks feel like they haven't gotten a sufficient amount of detail from us. We're happy to continue to follow up. There are a lot of individuals that are invested in making sure that this project is completed in a very timely way, and demonstrating that we are committed to ensuring that the impact to these businesses is minimized to the extent that we have the ability to do that. So some of the questions that were raised this evening, according to my notes, and thank you for sending in those questions in writing, that's helpful so we can respond to those adequately. Again, I am deeply sorry that these items were not addressed 4 years ago. I wish I had a time machine. I do not have one. If any of you have one, please let me know. For us to complete this in a way that minimizes the disruption to all the stakeholders, our engagement with the contractor has indicated that closing the street is the warranted step here. I don't like to do this. None of us like to do that. It is inconvenient for everyone.
You know, I'm sure the contractor is going to take the path of least resistance, what they think is going to be easier for them.
Yeah.
But this is an unusual occurrence because they've been through this already.
Correct. I'm sorry.
I just,
What question?
we discussed this at the end of the last time that this road was shut down, towards the end. And we committed to these businesses that we would not let it go again and not let it happen again. I'm concerned because I found out this afternoon that there was no incentive put into this contract to incentivize the construction company to finish this sooner or with minimal disruption to these businesses. And I just feel like we've let these folks down, and I don't know what can be done now. But I think we need to figure out what can be done to keep these people viable. It's just impossible to completely shut these folks out of any access whatsoever again.
Well, I
So,
think we
Mary
ought to
Kay
be
and then
talking to
Hugh.
them, Mayor, on a weekly basis. It seems like we need to be updating them on a weekly basis to know what's actually going on every week, because they're counting on this business to eat and feed their families. And they can't do that, period. So, I mean, this gotta take a different turn, because I remember, John, from before.
Mary Kay and then Hugh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I remember when we all went down to celebrate the opening of Eugene Street back up, and we were right there with them. And yeah, we were all saying, we can't let this happen again. I appreciate, everything transportation does. I appreciate, contractors trying to get things done in a timely manner and as fast and as quickly as possible. But I'm telling you what, if I were in their shoes, I would not have survived that last one. I really don't know. Luckily, they were able to pull through, but it was devastating. And then I drove by there today and yesterday, and tried to figure out, well, where would I park if I wanted to go eat at the restaurant, or wanted to look at bikes or something like that. I mean, where would I go? There is nowhere around there. So, I don't know if there's a solution at this point, but I mean, if we've got to support our small businesses, and they're the ones that have suffered the most during COVID, and now they're suffering again. I'm all for streetscapes. I'm all for everything, Hannah, you and your department do, but also as a previous small business owner, this one hurts. This really, really hurts. So, that's about all I can say about that.
Hugh?
Ms. Madam Mayor, thank you so much. I guess my question is, in listening to the comments from transportation, how much communication has there been with this business throughout? That is, not just at the beginning, but as things have changed throughout the planning or the closing, whatever else. Like my fellow council members, I'm also concerned about them not seeming to know what's going on with their business, what's going on with the streets, going on with the closure, when it's going to end, and when they can get back to normal. And I think they do deserve that, and we should provide that to them as quickly as possible. Is there a plan to complete the work? What is the timeline of it? Do the business owners know it? And so therefore they can respond appropriately. It's tough enough out here as it is in the world without having to have the streets closed and business further cut off. They deserve an answer.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to have a meeting with them and to go over these points, because when we approved this contract a few months ago, these items came up, and we gave them assurances that we would make sure there was as little disruption to their businesses as possible. And it doesn't appear that happened, and it doesn't appear that the communication has really been two ways.
Madam Mayor.
Dr. Wells?
I would think that we need to ask the contractor to be more creative. There has to be some other way to do it. We don't close the highway down when they're improving the highway. They work at night or do something. But I remember these business owners coming to us before, and we said that wouldn't happen to them again, and we don't want to break our promise to them. So please see, can't you work out something with that contractor so that he can do something to keep that street open for those property owners?
Madam Mayor,
Yeah,
if you all can allow us to go back and convene another meeting and also include the residents that are downtown, because we did receive complaints from them last time about the length of construction. So we want to make sure we have everyone at the table so that we have a consensus of how we move forward and make sure everyone is on board and we can address the concerns that came in on the letter.
okay.
Is it possible to open that street while we're going through the process of having the meetings?
We can do that. Yes. We'll make sure that happens.
And may I ask, Madam Mayor, what happened to the digitized sign that we said, because we did say that from even up here, that we'd ensure they had advertisement to make sure people knew their business was going. What happened to that?
We can address that as well. They did the physical signs and not the digitized signs. That's what's out now, but we can go back and address that.
Well, that's not what we said. We said we would do that so that as people were coming to, they would know that the businesses were open. And
So if we could pull that meeting together as soon as possible and include the contractor. And, they've left a pretty detailed list of questions. If we could have those answered, I think that would be appreciative.
Will do.
So at this point, what we'll say to the speakers is that we will get back to you within how long? Or how long to set the meeting up?
So we'll try to convene the meeting within the next week.
Okay.
And then follow back up with you all on what our next steps will be.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can you all speak with these business owners tomorrow, the concrete? I know the meeting within the next week, but let's talk to these people tomorrow.
Will do.
So while we're on streets and parking, Philip Marsh and Deborah Rondo.
Happy New Year, all.
Happy New Year.
To the mayor and the people and the council people. I still have my problem. I didn't hear anything back Friday. I did hear something back Monday, which is not conducive to the problem that I have on Lewis Street. It might help out the folks that are on South Side, but it is not helping the parking on Lewis Street. We were promised permits. I want to see about going through with the permits, parking, because it would, it would help me out and it would help out my business also if we cut down the hours that are on the signs and be able to, for me to stay in business. And I'm trying to do the best that I can. I done lost my barbers. So what more can I do? I'm depending on something to happen and any other business that comes into that neighborhood, what are we supposed to do? We were basically, we look at the problem as the other businesses down the street don't have parking for their folks, so their folks are parking on our street. So parking garage, people's not gonna park in the parking garage. You gotta have some place where we all can come to. I'm looking at right now, looking for me. I was looking for everyone. Right now, I need me satisfied. And I've been there 20 years and enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Yeah, I just find it strange that, that preceding conversation, the same things we've been asking for 5 years. 5 years. We were promised by Adam Fisher for our parking permits. We've had Dr. Wells, Mary Kay Abbott away to come down there. They talked with staff. again, this is what I talked about last time. Staff just does what they want to do. Hannah didn't solve no problems there. She started talking about other things. Staff has got to get out of this problem of thinking they're going to do whatever they want to do. I know Kim was asked to call me once before. That call never came. And it just gets ridiculous. Like we've had 5 neighbors move from that street because of this problem. And I mean, these aren't hard problems to solve. If we can't solve one parking problem, and it seems like 2 and multiple others, if you research it online, about the business community downtown, I mean, how can we expect to run a city of this size and we can't even solve the smallest problems like parking? It's parking permits. If Kim has to write new policy to do what we need to do, then do it. I mean, but this is ridiculous. And again, I just don't understand how Kim can say we can call people back, we can have site visits, we can do all these things. But when we ask for it, nobody knows what to do. I mean, we got to stop this doing for one and not doing for others. Again, we can't run a city of this size doing these types of things. We expect the same thing, the same courtesy too. You can't call the board of our homeowners association and ask them what they want to do. They're not coming down here complaining. We live over there. We run businesses over there. So again, we have to get this together. And I mean, I just don't understand that it's like night and day seeing that previous conversation before we spoke. That just can't happen. It's ridiculous. Like we expect to be called this week too. We expect to be called and then met with as well. Our concerns are valid too. I mean, again, I'm just really appalled at what I just saw with that previous conversation, and everybody had comment for it. But when we came in here and we spoke last month, and Ms. Hightower said she wanted answers by the next Friday. We didn't even hear from city staff. We didn't even hear from nobody. That's ridiculous. Again, this is a small problem, and parking decks are not going to solve it for us. It's as simple as do what Adam Fisher said. We've tried everything he said. We moved the time. We did everything he asked. And he said the last thing we would do is get parking permits. And now all of a sudden everyone runs and hides when we get to that point of solving this issue. I mean, and it's ridiculous. We pay too much money to stay downtown and to run our businesses for us to get this treatment.
Thank you. I did speak to the city manager earlier today about the parking permits, and I don't know what you're prepared to say at this point.
Well, I think if we could get an update on what's been discussed so far, and then we can talk about.
Well, before you give us an update, please don't give me just a generic answer.
Sure.
Update. I want to know, what are you gonna do for them? I said it when he was here before, and you're right. I heard nothing, no follow-up, no nothing. And they are a Black small business. That's an even harder struggle sometimes when you're trying to be in business. We are running people out of business. We can't be small business friendly. And we've got to do a better job of this and follow up. And so I don't want to hear a generic answer. If you don't have a solution today, then we need a solution tomorrow. And I'm gonna start calling in the morning, talking to folk and getting somebody or sitting in somebody's office, because this has got to get resolved now.
Well, I do have an update whenever you all are ready.
Okay.
So I will say that I called Ms. Rondo myself, and Ms. Cockburn was in the meeting with me. And so I apologize if Mr. Marsh expected a call. I was never asked to call him. I didn't know that he also was involved in this, but we called Ms. Rondo with a solution, and we explained. And I will ask Ms. Cockburn to explain the process, but we do have an agreement with the homeowners association to manage parking spaces for that area. And we provided an additional number of parking spaces that we will allow the HOA to manage to accommodate the needs of that area. And so that was the solution that we came up with, was to provide additional parking spaces for the HOA to manage. We can't manage parking spaces for private owners, but we will work with HOAs to do that. And so Ms. Cockburn, if you can go through kind of what the process is now and how many additional spaces we did provide to the HOA to accommodate these concerns.
Sure, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to follow up on that.
Please do.
So I understand the frustration about the parking issue. This is an instance where there are no good solutions that address all of the competing interests in this location. It is unfortunate that there are a number of properties in this location that have no secure off-street parking that is dedicated to those specific units. That is not something that will be addressed through a permit process. And we have looked at this location numerous times now to determine if it qualifies for and meets the standards that are set in the city ordinances for permits, and it does not. So we have two ways to address this that we have presented to the HOA. Because we will need a private partner in order to execute what we are proposing as a next step. We've identified an additional 20 spaces that on their face are currently public street spaces that could be transferred to a private street and be reserved for specific use of for the HOA members, the residents, and the businesses. Based on the conversations that we've had with the HOA representatives, we have not heard back from them. I am happy to follow up with them to make a determination if that is something they'd like to pursue. But as downtown continues to grow and the diversity of businesses and the times of operations continue to grow, there is continued competition for on-street parking spaces.
Dr. Wells? All right, the solution that Ms. Cochran just gave you, does that help you? Does that satisfy?
None whatsoever.
It doesn't?
None whatsoever.
All right,
And I don't understand how Mr. Fisher can say it does meet the requirements and she's saying it doesn't. Again, that doesn't make no sense whatsoever.
Now, I've had conversation, Mary Kay and I went to you, I know it's been 3 years ago. And as you said, Adam came up with what I said to Ms. Cochran. I think it was, maybe I left a message or she told me that nothing could be done because of the ordinances. So I propose we're the ones who changed the ordinances. Something has to be done. These people keep coming. And I was listening to the scenario too, how concerned we were about making sure that those businesses did not suffer. She's been suffering. She's been over there 12 years. Philip's been to us umpteen times. We've been and talked to them. We can't do anything if there are ordinances on the book that prohibit the progress. And just as she said, with all of the new companies coming and businesses coming, they're all going to be competing. So it means we are going to have to change something. We have to look at what will work for the citizens and the business owners. And it does look, we don't want to look at black and white all the time. But when we have two cases that come up so close to each other, and then they're dealt with in a different way. Because we have talked about this, Mary Kay and I have promised, I think Sharon's promised, we've done all we could, and Kim can't do any more than what the ordinances allow. So it's back on us. We need to find out what kind of ordinance needs to be written so people can have the parking spaces they need for their businesses. So I don't know what that is, Don't know how it needs to be written, but I think the people who are affected need to be listened to and get their advice as to what they need, because we give an answer, but if it doesn't satisfy them, it's not helping. So he's saying what they've come up with, that solution will not help them. And what about you? Doesn't help you either. Okay, so something else has to be done, and that's up to us. We
Agree.
have to do something.
Agree.
Everybody,
I agree with you, Dr. Wells. We do have to do something, and we ought to do it as quickly as possible and get the attorneys to look at that and to design an alternate ordinance.
right.
So, Mr. City Attorney, I want you to tell us, how quickly can we revisit this ordinance and make those changes?
We can look at it, certainly. This is first it's come to my attention. Was perusing the statutes, the ordinances at this point. It's something we can get on.
Well, I think we need to get on it. So I'm not trying to, I know you got a lot on your plate because I'm always, but I think this is too important to kind of put it off. And you're right. We can't keep sending two messages either. We're real concerned here, but we're not concerned here. We have to send the same consistent message, period. But we're not doing that. And we've got to do a better job of that as well. So if you could do that and just come back to the council representative, let us know what that looks like, work with Dr. Wells, and because it's her district, I believe it's in your district, Dr. Wells, right? As well. So part of that, because we got to get that done.
I'll speak to him.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'm gonna have to leave you. I'm sick as a dog. Bye.
I'm sorry, I hope you feel better. Motion to excuse.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Mr. Boozwaiter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes without exception. Feel better.
So, Madam Mayor, could we say that we would like for our city attorney and our assistant city manager and the people over there find out what they want, and
Well,
then
and
see what can
I
be
think
done.
they hear that. Mr. Boozwaiter?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was about 3 years ago, Goldie and I went and talked, and there were some things promised, but that there was no follow through on that. And I'm certainly not demeaning a prior employee by any means. In his heart, he felt that, we could do the permits, but then he got in and looked to the ordinance and all that stuff. And I assume that's why it didn't go any further, but I do think we need a solution. And Deborah and I have corresponded a few times, and it always seems like, yes, but we need more parking. And I understand we need more parking, but this is a situation, once again, where we don't want to hurt a small business. And, I feel like we do need to move forward with something that will help them. I'm not understanding all about the ordinances and why the permits aren't allowed and all that. I know residents have permits around UNCG in the Glenwood area. So, I don't really have the knowledge for all of that at this point, but I know that we have great staff who can certainly try to, in a timely manner, expeditiously, see what we can do for this. I recall years ago, there was unrelated in a way, but also related. There was an old taxi ordinance on the books that was shutting down people from earning an income. And it took a little while, but we got it solved and the ordinance was changed. So, I know they can be changed. So whatever staff can do, I really think that, they've kind of suffered long enough with this.
Mrs. Hoffman?
I think this is something important enough for us to maybe somehow look at it comprehensively, and maybe that needs to be a work session. But what I can say, we live in a city, and that city is continuing to grow, and downtown is growing, both with businesses and with residents, and that's a really good thing. But I think we also have to realize that downtown, you can't park in front of the business that you're going to and every time you want to, nor can you park in front of the building where you live. And so we need to look at the parking for downtown comprehensively, but also as a city, we have to realize that, you know, oftentimes we have to park and walk a few blocks to get to where we want to be. And that's the reality of downtown living. But I mean, I certainly don't want businesses harmed in any way. You know, so I just, we're not going to solve this tonight, but I think this is something that we as a council need to look at comprehensively and how we're going to deal with it.
Thank you. So I think,
I was going to say, Madam Mayor, thank you.
yeah.
I was going to say that it seems like, if I heard correctly, either it's been 3 or 5 years that this question has been before council, and I think there have been some promises made, but not promises kept. Obviously, there are solutions that can be held, whether it's through the city attorney or whether it's through assistant city manager Sowell. But we need to, as we did with the other case, we need to move on this very quickly. If it's something as Ms. Cockburn said that, you know, there's not a whole lot we can do, but then we heard the previous words that there are some solutions. Again, we have to find a way to get to yes and get there quickly for just general purposes and not let an issue like this hang around for 3 or 5 years. So we must get on it. There's a solution out there and we're going to find it.
Thank you. So I think staff understands what the expectations are. Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Louis Medina, followed by Del Stone.
Hello, Happy New Year's. So this will be the 4th year of my comrades and I and others have been fighting for justice for Marcus Smith. And I'm gonna do something different this year. I'm not gonna address city council. I'm gonna address the people of Greensboro. I'm pretty sure that city council is pretty much ran by robots at this point. It's obvious that we're never gonna get justice for them. So I appeal to the people of Greensboro. Just 2 months ago, Joseph Lopez was shot and killed at his home by Greensboro police, and there was no evidence he had a weapon. There was no sign that he was a threat. His family's been asking for videos and evidence and haven't received them. Again, 3 years ago, Marcus Smith was hogtied and murdered in the street by Greensboro police, and this city council has smeared their family, has hidden it, has lied, every one of them. But somehow today, they're all able to unanimously vote for Cop Appreciation Day. Was that correct? National Cop Appreciation Day. How is that? How is it that we keep getting murdered while police get honored? How is it that our murders keep getting ignored? I'm going to try to explain. They also vote unanimously on developer projects. Every time a millionaire comes in here, all of a sudden, all their hands go up. When developer projects get passed, our rent goes up. We get evicted, right? And then after we are evicted, if we try to fight back, if we try to stand up for ourselves at any given instance, there's a cop. They kick us out of our homes. And if we're in the street and houseless, remember Marcus Smith was a houseless man, right? They'll kill us if necessary. Marcus Smith, again, was a houseless man and he was killed. And from this analysis, from this understanding, he was a calculated consequence to the development of wealth in the city. So they're not going to get us justice. Their interests are opposed to us. And as I said, I repeat, if I can find it in speech, that police function in the society, that junction between those who have and those who have not. These city council members work for the rich, and they will continue to do so. That's how they got in this position. All right. If we want something to change, we're going to have to do it ourselves. And anybody that's listening to that, anybody who is poor and struggling, anybody that works for a wage, and you know that, it's between us and them, and it always has been.
Thank you.
I had like
Our
more
next
speech to go.
speaker is Del Stone, followed by Hester Petty.
Good evening. I'm Del Stone. I'm a Greensboro resident and a community organizer with the Working Class and Houseless Organizing Alliance. So tonight, as we all know, City Council passed a resolution 9-1 to recognize National Law Enforcement Day, which is a day honoring the cops whose egregious violence and racism has plagued this city for decades, whose method of keeping order in this city involves, as it does across the country, harassing houseless people, evicting people, pushing people into the streets, targeting Black people above all, and enforcing laws against victimless crimes that end up with our community members chained and caged. Celebrating this as a holiday is a slap in the face to the thousands of citizens who know the reality of police racism and brutality. It's an insult to all who know the history of the city in particular, its long legacy of racist police violence going back to the 1970 massacre and long before. It's a direct affront to the families of Marcus Smith and Joseph Lopez and so many more. City council members make grand gestures like they care about the people of the city. They sit above us like they know what's best for us, like they actually represent us, like their priorities are ours. But honoring cops is not the priority of working class people. People without shelter are not going to vote to glorify the armed guards who kick them out of public space and patrol their every move. The city must know this because they have made some paltry efforts at changing policing. They have established a so-called hospitality team with what they call ambassadors to reduce the amount of times Greensboro police respond to non-emergency calls. They brag about the number of responses they've made to various issues, like a camping presence scout and panhandling. But what do we think these ambassadors are responding to calls like these? Are they there to help the camper and the panhandler? Are they there to shoo them along, perhaps detain them, so that upstanding tax-paying city homeowners can go on blithely about their clean, comfortable, delusional lives? This is just policing in comfier clothes. Another response Greensboro implemented in the wake of the George Floyd protests is what is called a co-response program. This attempts to address well-founded complaints against over-policing, and it signals recognition of the fact that Greensboro police go too far, that they do too much, that they hurt too many people. These alternative models are supposed to solve the problematic ways police address people in mental crisis, people like Marcus Smith. But where was the consideration of such co-response team when Joseph Lopez was in crisis last November and ended up dead by police bullets? What is needed is a fundamental change, where the response is not a collaboration between police and people, but a direct one, people helping people. What is needed is the basic provision of resources that lay a foundation of material security, so police never have to be called in the first place. Mental health care needs to be widely, freely, immediately accessible. Shelter, water, and food need to be treated as the basic human rights they are. The solution is not co-response policing, hospitality policing, soften around the edges policing. The solution is no policing. We need to call each other and not rely on the cops to solve our problems. We need community-based networks that make police obsolete. Thank you.
Thank you. Hester Petty. And then we have two speakers on Zoom, Louis Pitts and Christine Hoffner.
Okay. My name is Hester Petty, live at 3402 Canterbury Street here in Greensboro. I'm speaking tonight again about the Smith lawsuit against the city. Both city attorney Chuck Watts and Councilman Justin Outling have stated they believe the Smith lawsuit will be dismissed by the federal judge. That may be so. But even without a jury trial, the lawsuit has produced information about the Greensboro Police Department previously unknown to the public. Last year, Judge Magistrate in the Smith case ordered the city to produce body-worn camera footage of 50 prior Rip Hobble incidents that preceded the death in custody of Marcus Smith in 2018. Body-worn camera footage was eventually produced, and this city's council subsequently asked a Superior Court judge for permission to watch the footage, and were granted permission to do so. Attorney Flint Taylor has summarized what the Smith legal team saw in the video footage, and I quote, "Our review of the body-worn camera footage of the incidents also established that of the 50 incidents produced, 38 of the victims, 76% were Black." By now, all of you should have watched the videos, I hope, of these 50 videos, 50 incidents, and I have a question for you tonight. In those 50 incidents, were 76% of the people rip-hobbled Black? Simple question. I recently looked into statistics from the Greensboro Police Department on the use of force in 2018. Of the 186 incidents of use of force that were documented, 8 people were Hispanic, 38 were white, and 140 were Black, putting the percentage of Black people at 75%. And although all the data isn't in for 2021 on the use of force, as of today, it's 1 Asian person, 8 Hispanics, 34 whites, and 171 Blacks, putting the percentage of Black people at 76%. So although I already know the answer to my question, I will repeat it for you. In those 50 incidents in 2018, were 76% of the people rip-hobbled Black. This is not a question about the lawsuit. You can answer this question because this is a question about the use of excessive force perpetuated by the police against Black people, especially Black men in Greensboro. Look at the statistics. Something is wrong with our police department. You can't even get the parking. How are we supposed to get the police fixed?
Thank you. Louis Pitts.
Good evening. My name is Louis Pitts. First, I want to say 3 cheers to these previous speakers that have been so bold in speaking to you. But also want to say Happy New Year to council members. You will each either win or lose an election this year. But maybe to your surprise, I'm also very excited about the fact that Toyota Electric Battery is going to locate a plant here near our city, and there's a possibility of a company building supersonic jets near here. I support that. But if our current and growing majority non-white population of our city does not feel safe from racist and violent police conduct, businesses will not thrive, business will not stay here, and businesses will not come here. Greensboro will remain divided along race and class lines. Crime and homicide will grow. Yet none of you have taken any action to hold our notoriously bad police department accountable. NC Medical Examiner rules that the hog-tying death of Marcus Smith was a homicide. What have you done? You spent over $1.3 million of city money on private lawyers to fight the lawsuit. You've tried to cover up the crucial fact that he was hog-tied. You've tried to cover up and ignored the pattern of racist 50 uses of hog-tying that Ms. Petty just referred to. The list could go on, as you know. And yet today also, front page of our News and Record daily paper, the district attorney has dismissed all the charges, including felony charges, against Mr. Hector Lopez, who had been falsely accused of selling narcotics several months ago. Hector Sanchez. Mr. Sanchez owns and operates a hemp store, and he sells legal, analyzed, lawful hemp and CBD products like 15 or 20 other store owners do. And yet he was the one that was raided, had $25,000 worth of property seized and falsely charged. What are you doing about it? Let me ask you, for the campaign record, will you act immediately to fairly settle the Marcus Smith suit, apologize, and hold police accountable? Will you do the same for Hector Sanchez before he has to bring a lawsuit? You have the floor. Silence will speak volumes.
Time has expired. Thank you. Our next speaker is Christine Hefner.
Well, my name is Christine Hoffman. It's just 2 years since I moved to Greensboro and found out about the Greensboro Police Department's homicide of Marcus Smith by hog tying. Then this summer, more troubling information came to light when the Smith family legal team filed documents in court, what Hester just described. These written summaries attest to racist practices perpetrated by the Greensboro Police Department. And the basis for the summaries, GPD's own body-worn camera footage, surely demonstrate that these practices impacted many more Greensboro residents than just Marcus Smith. For me, it was most heartbreaking to find that a pregnant woman and an elderly woman with dementia were among the victims of hog tying. But they're just two of the more than 300 victims of hog tying by GPD over 4 years that we learned about from the Smith team. And we learned from them that 3/4 of the victims of hog tying were Black, though Black people make up less than half of Greensboro's population. But we've learned nothing from you all about this. In fact, at last month's meeting, the city attorney stated that the videos were irrelevant to the Smith case. This makes me wonder about the advice you're getting on the case, because what he said is very misleading. That is, 2 judges made clear when they ordered the police to make the videos available that the videos are indeed relevant to the Smith case against the city. But the videos are also relevant to a much bigger problem, according to the Smith team statistic about racist policing. So it's especially important for voters to know what city council, what each of you has seen. Mayor Vaughn said she asked to go back to the judge and see if you all could speak about them. Can you tell me if this has been done? Meanwhile, Mayor Vaughn has also said she'd be willing to defy the judge's gag order if she saw something on a body cam video that she sincerely believed represented outrageous police misconduct or brutality. Could it be that she doesn't think that racist policing is outrageous? Voters also want to know what you will do about the situation. Thankfully, the hog tying has been stopped. But what about racist policing in general? If you doubt the Smith team statistic, how about an investigation? The videos would provide a good foundation for that. Mayor Vaughn has dismissed the written summaries of the videos as Flint Hiller's talking points. But the Smith case aside, the video evidence still stands. Surely you won't ignore the troubling information the videos reveal. Unless you don't see racist policing as a problem. Greensboro residents are looking to vote for those who will take this serious
30 seconds
on. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that is the end of the speakers from the floor segment. Nope, you're saying we.
No, I'm here.
Oh, Catherine Holcomb.
Yes. Thank you. Mayor and City Council, my name is Catherine Holcomb. I live at 1911 Rosecrest Drive. I want to first thank Sharon Hightower for speaking up an unpopular opinion that I read about in Yes Weekly opposing the social drinking district. I appreciate your boldness in that. Now, today we are in January. Our national holiday for Martin Luther King is included in this month. But this year there will be no Martin Luther King parade. The North Carolina A&T State University is hosting some day of service activities for the public on their campus. And I noticed this, the Western North Carolina Conference of Black Methodist Churches are sponsoring a contest to create art or an essay to answer this prompt. What can I do to stand up for peace, justice, and love in our world?
I'm pondering that and encouraging people in my church to ponder it for yourself. What can we do to stand up for peace, justice, and love in Greensboro? My answer, as a citizen, I can show up and speak truth to power. About peace, I can never again think, well, I'm okay because all the violence and crime are happening in other districts in Greensboro, not my neighborhood. About love, to truly love another means I want the same things for others as I want for myself, especially in housing and food and transportation. I cannot ignore the pain of brothers and sisters not in District 3 or Black people riding the buses when I have a car. About justice, not to tolerate how Greensboro Police Department has not been accountable for excessive force used on both people like me and on deadly force on Marcus Smith. There is camera footage to prove his case, not of mine. Therefore, I stand as an ally with the Smith family for justice and reparations for the loss of their son, Marcus. And I stand as an ally for those being evicted, unable to access affordable housing. I hope before I die, having lived all my life in Greensboro, I will see it become a place where, number one, Greensboro Police Department adopts courtesy, shooting to maim instead of killing, no immunity for wrongdoing. Number two, that I will see citizens starting as children learning why it pays not to be mean to people different than you. Three, that we could cooperate to share across districts, seeing each other not as strangers over there on the other side of town, but as friends we have not met yet. And four, citizens who ask questions of city employees always get answers. We saw tonight it doesn't happen, nor does it happen when you're arrested by police and you say, why are you arresting me? They don't even give you an answer. Every teacher in Guilford County should require students to watch a city council meeting. If they saw what happened tonight, they would be shocked at the lack of transparency, the promises made and not kept. I myself am horrified.
Thank you. So I believe that is our final speaker. Yes, okay. We will now move on to the consent agenda portion. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Moved by Dr. Wells, seconded by Ms. Abuzawader. Council, please vote. Mrs. Hoffman? Mr. Holston?
Yes.
Dr. Wells? I am a yes. Mrs. Abuzawader? Mr. Outling?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hightower?
Yes.
And that passes 8-0. That is the end of our agenda, boards and commissions. Mrs. Hoffman? Mr. Holston?
I have none.
Dr. Wells? Mrs. Abuzawader? Mr. Outling?
None.
Mrs. Thurm?
None.
Mrs. Hightower?
Well, I think I have one, but let me get some clarity because, and let me get this clarity again. Something came over to my email that was a interest form. Are you all automatically putting them in? Because for me, I prefer to put them in myself. So I got one the other day and I printed it out, but of course it's at home because I got it at home. So are you all automatically putting them in? So I don't
Yes,
have-
ma'am.
Okay, so the person is already in the database. Okay, all right.
So did you want to make an appointment or just put them in the database?
I just was making sure they're in the database. So
Okay.
tonight anyway, and then I'll have appointments
thank
on
you.
the next meeting.
Council comments, Mrs. Hightower?
Well, what I want to say is that it's kind of disturbing to me that it appears we're not transparent or that we don't keep our word. You know, old people say your word is your bond. And if we don't do what we say we're going to do, then it does make us look like we're not very concerned about people's issues. And I'm very concerned and disturbed this evening that two issues very similar have been handled or mishandled, I should say. And that's just not the way that we should be operating. It worries me because the social district, drinking district policy went through very quickly, was put together very quickly, wasn't discussed at all, but yet it went through. And then there are other ones that we talk about for weeks and months and days. I've approached, trying to expand the 600 feet zoning ordinance to 750. And yet we got to have conversation about that. We got to have a meeting about that. I'm told, we got to have public input about that. And yet here we are, we haven't done it yet. I've talked about the appeal process being put, strengthened into place when it comes to zoning matters. We got to have a meeting about that. We got to have a public process about that. And we haven't done it yet. But we had a drinking district policy that went into effect almost immediately. Somebody wrote the policy, somebody put it through, and it showed up at council. This stuff is not equal. Representation is not equal here. Certain things are done in a haste. Other things are taking months, weeks. Oh, well, we got to talk about it. This is not the way government should be. That's why people don't trust government, because it does appear like we cater to some and we don't listen to others. These issues are important to the community, and we need to be addressing them in a much more expedient way, in a much more transparent way. And we need to be doing things on an equal basis. So I'm just asking us to do a lot better job than what I saw and heard tonight and what I've experienced in the past, because we are representing people and they all have a certain, they have a voice. They use us sometimes as their voice to get things done. And some of this is being slow walked and not pushed as fast as it needs to be. And we've just got to do a better job of that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Wells?
It's been interesting, but I do think Councilwoman Hightower was saying that it looks like we're not keeping our promises, but I'm hopeful that our discussion tonight will, thank you, Pierre. I hope our discussion tonight will bring about some change. Sometimes you don't realize things how things can appear. And it appeared as if we were not concerned on an equal basis for the two situations. But I really, in heart, I don't think that we are like that. But sometimes we make mistakes. We do make mistakes. And I hope tonight will correct that kind of mistake, that we look at trying to follow through and keep the promises that we made. I'd like to urge everyone, if you have not had your vaccination, please do it, and please wear your mask. I sat here and I wrote the names of the people in my circle that have contracted the virus, and there are 11 on my list, and one of them, the 12th one, died. So there are lots of people who are being effective. So let's do all that we can to prevent that. And I'd like to invite you to take a part and to look at the MLK Day celebration that will be sponsored by the Pulpit Forum. That's going to be on Sunday, the 16th at 4 p.m. on their the Pulpit Forum's Facebook page at 4 p.m. on the 16th. The theme is Wake Up and Remember the Dream. Wake up and remember the dream. It will be quite interesting. So please join in for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Outling?
Thank you. I really want to support and express my sharing of many of the beliefs raised by Councilwoman Hightower. I think tonight, as well as in many other circumstances, it just reveals an opportunity for improvement in terms of how we address issues in the city, especially in terms of how we manage them. As I sit and reflect on them, I just see opportunities for improvements, especially with regard to systems. It's remarkable at times when you look at various topics, and Councilwoman Hightower did a good job of giving examples on how things are just categorically treated differently. Many months ago, for example, this council voted unanimously to direct staff to come back with a proposal for how we can make sure that residents across the city, when there are rezoning matters, there are required meetings, just like there are in areas of the city where there's a neighborhood plan, like Friendly. So that in East Greensboro, which hasn't had benefit of a neighborhood plan, can be put on equal footing like the residents in the Friendly area. Notwithstanding what I recall as a unanimous council vote, it's probably been over a year and that hasn't been brought back to the council when it was a specific direction for it to be next month. There are certain situations where there are internal departmental policies. To Councilwoman Hightower's point, they come to council very quickly. Sometimes they get on our agendas in less than 48 hours. We're put in a position where we have to vote on it, where there are other policies where I'm not sure the distinction for why they're treated differently. I can literally tell you, I've been having conversations with staff on one particular policy for well over a year. For a matter for which the former city manager said, we have a solution, we will do this, and it hasn't been done. And so the consequence, I think, is a lot of missed opportunity for progress, a lot of frustration, her remarks about the lack of transparency, and I think it's really just an opportunity for improvement. So I look forward to the next city managers and other staff persons really looking at ways in which we can improve processes to help move our community forward. And I would even include what happened tonight. I know city staff has been at all of these meetings, and you probably noticed that I don't talk when residents come up here and make comments. And that's because we agreed to a process by which these meetings would be about people making their comments, not about us responding, but we would follow up with them, give them solutions, and address their concerns. Part of that, I think, as a systems matter, is to help ensure that this board is focusing its collective time on the really big issues. That's, again, is an opportunity for improvement, because while parking is very, very important, last year, the second highest number of homicides in the city's history. 2020, the highest number of homicides in the city's history. The year before that, to date, it was the highest number of homicides. And so, I'm just looking forward to more work, especially from staff and hopefully from this board, in thinking about the systems and processes that we can proceed with to help ensure that we're being fair, we're being equitable, and we're also being good stewards of our time and staff's time in focusing on the really significant things as this board, working with staff to address constituent concerns and the like, because again, while parking permits are very, very important, and I don't mean to minimize any of those things, there are a lot of other really important things too that equally deserve an hour's worth of this council's deliberation and discussion. So thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hoffman? Mrs. Thurm?
Yeah, a brief comment. I agree with comments made earlier about the need for improvement and room to go. And at the same time, I understand that this past year, the past 2 years have been really difficult for staff. And I acknowledge that, and at the same time, don't want to use it as an excuse, but I understand that we've had some really unusual circumstances to live through the past couple of years. Also want to thank staff, our first responders, Duke Power, for the efforts yesterday to get us back to some normalcy. I know I called Metro 911 yesterday morning at about 5:30 to report down trees that they already knew about. And by the time I came back through that same intersection an hour later at 6:30, people were out there, they were working, and they were, marking out the area so that cars were safe and that people were safe on their way to work. We've got room for improvement. Absolutely. There's room to grow, and there's improvement that's drastically needed. And at the same time, we have to acknowledge the good work that's being done. And I don't want that to get lost for our employees, that there's really good work being done in our city. We can do even better work, but we need to acknowledge both the need for improvement and the good things that are happening in our city. Sometimes in frustration, city staff get frustrated too, and they don't always respond the way we would like for them to respond to a situation. And they get pulled in multiple directions at the same time, and things get lost. As Councilman Outling said, speaks for the need for systems and for tracking and those kinds of things, and things that are fixable. But at the same time, nobody's out there trying to do a crappy job. Everybody's trying to do the best that they know how to do with the tools that they have, and it's appreciated. Thank you.
Mrs. Buswaiter?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our next meeting isn't until the 18th, and I wanted to remind everyone about the Martin Luther King Day virtual program. Normally, there's the MLK breakfast sponsored by the Human Rights Commission, but of course, it's going to be virtual again this year. I believe the right decision was made on that. The commission had debated, could we try it in person? But with the increase in the COVID, it was a very smart move about 6-7 months ago. So that will be on Monday, January 17th at 9 a.m. Nikki Giovanni, the famous poet, will be the keynote speaker. So I encourage everyone to tune in on that. I know it'll be listed how to get on in the Human Rights Commission page. So wanted to remind everyone of that. I do want to mention Mrs. Thurman and I were able to go to the funeral for Captain Dan Moore. That was on Saturday, and 24-year veteran of the force. And I did want to read one paragraph out of his obituary that was that day. It was just gives an idea of the person, the man. I know that when we saw all of the photos on the screen of his life, you came away feeling that you knew him. It was just a beautiful service. Thomas Daniel Moore. Dan was a 24-year officer with the Greensboro Police Department who recently retired as a division commander at the rank of captain. He was the consummate student, teacher, and warrior poet. Captain Moore embodied the essence of a servant leader, whether writing operational briefings, teaching firearms to new recruits at the range, going through a door, commanding a division. Dan always raised the bar, created a new standard, and has left a hole that will not be filled. I thought that was just a nice way that he was remembered there. Also want to mention that I'm appreciative of what our city is doing in reducing crime. I realize that crime is still at an all-time high everywhere, but there has been some reduction in Greensboro on our percentages in all of the different categories. So thanks go to the chief and public safety director, Trey Davis, and the department. And I believe, and I've read many, many times, the reason it is starting to show some result is the added efforts by PD to work more with the community. Of course, I'm going to give Crime Stoppers a little plug here too, because Crime Stoppers has really done a lot of outreach. But those are things that have happened after a crime has happened with Crime Stoppers. And the PD has gone with community engagement. They're going out into the communities even during a pandemic. So I think a lot of that hard work is showing, and I truly appreciate it. And that's about all I had. Happy New Year to everyone. And please wear your mask, or, make sure you've gotten vaccinated and boosted. Our 1-day positivity rate the other day was 32%. And the 2-week average is 18 or 19%. So we really need to try to get a handle on this. Thank you.
Ms. Sturm, you said you had a follow-up?
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot. I wanted to make sure everybody knew that on February 2nd, from 7 to 8 PM, we will have our participatory budgeting kickoff event. It's a virtual event online, and you can go to www.pbgreensboro.com. Again, that's pbgreensboro.com for more information on how to register for that and how to become a part of the PB process for the upcoming year.
Thank you. Mrs. Hightower, did you?
Madam Mayor, since Councilwoman Thurman brought up participatory budgeting, I need an update. There is a project all the way back, the first phase of PB, and it is not done. And I need to know when will it be done? What are we going to do about it? It is at Glendale and Randaman Road, and it is what the Tyler Run neighborhood came up with. And I think it was a crosswalk. And yes, there's been some property bought or donated to the city in that area, but that doesn't mean we can not still do that particular project. So PB is great. I support it. I was on the committee that actually started PB. And it works well when it works. But when there are things that have not been done, we need to find out why. And so it's been a few years now. So I need an update on that project and where we are with that. That is a transportation PB project.
And there's one other PB project I'd like an update on. And I believe that there is a citywide project for a trolley downtown. And what is the status of that? Because if there was a trolley, if there was a way to circulate people downtown, they could park further away from where they're going if this was in effect. And I thought it was one of the projects that did pass all 5 districts, but
in fact, it did, Mayor. And we owe council an update on all the PB projects. When we delayed funding for a year, we slacked off a bit with that. That's our fault. We'll get you an update on all outstanding projects right away.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Holston?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very briefly to follow up on some of the conversation we've had today. It's going to be important that we focus on engagement and communication and working on solutions when it comes to city staff and our citizens here in Greensboro. Then also I want to say that, as I usually try to mention is that please wear your mask and please get vaccinated. And if necessary, based on the holidays and all the gatherings we've had, also consider getting tested. And remember, we aren't doing it just for ourselves, but doing it for those that we love and those who are close to us. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I do want to say thank you to staff. I know that they do hard work all year long. This has been a really difficult year. People are out, we were understaffed, they were doing things that they don't usually do. Things may fall through the cracks, but for the most part, we've got a really well-run city, and we had really good news last year. And that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the efforts of city staff across the board. So, while we're not perfect and while things, could use some changes and tweaking, I think it also needs to be put in perspective that we were in the 2nd year of a pandemic. Some people were working from home, some people were doing double duty, and we had some great projects coming up, which were extremely time consuming. So I think things need to be put in a little perspective. And I also want to make a clarification. When we said we were doing the town hall style meetings, what we said was that we wouldn't vote on an item that comes from the floor, but we didn't say that we wouldn't speak to speakers. We didn't say that we would just sit here and listen to them. What we said was that we wouldn't vote on something that came from the floor in that meeting. And I think that that is a specific distinction that needs to be made. We do need to wear our masks and get vaccinated. The Coliseum will be working with Guilford County Health Department and with Moses Cone to stand up another facility, which will be for testing and for vaccinations. If we can just move that vaccination 1%, it will make a significant difference in our population. One message that the hospital system wants to put out is that if you need a test, don't go to the emergency room. That is one of the reasons why the emergency room is getting bogged down. Mr. Holston, I know you've been working hard on vaccines and testing. And I'm not sure if you're aware of other facilities that people can go to get tested, but I know that the North Carolina Department of Human Services has a listing of testing facilities, but the hope is not to go to the hospital. And we hope to have this at Piedmont Hall up and running, and it will be running through the end of February. I was on a call with Guilford County health officials and Cone Health, and I was surprised when they mentioned the top 3 places where people were likely to get infected. And number 1 was the home. It was the home, dormitory style facilities, and the classroom. And, as far as in the home, that's hard for the city to control what people do in their own home. And the result of that was, I think what we knew, it was all holiday parties and get-togethers and things that people were doing. So it is important that you wear a mask when you're out so you don't come home and unknowingly infect your family. So just those words. Mr. City Manager? Oh, what? Okay.
The mayor probably would not mention this, but she was noted as one of the 2021 achievers in North Carolina. Mayor Viola Lyles of Charlotte, Marianne Baldwin of Raleigh, and Nancy Vaughn of Greensboro have gained respect for steady leadership of the state's 3 biggest cities. Mayoral power is largely limited in our state, so it isn't right to assign too much blame or credit, but they are professionals with big hearts for their cities. Each has distinctive strengths, but we'll count them as one because of their similar roles. Congratulations.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Mr. City Manager?
Nothing this evening.
Mr. City Attorney?
I have nothing either.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. Holston, second by Mrs. Thurm. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
With that objection, we're adjourned. I'll get that right eventually.